This episode of The Apartment Guys is being brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group. Greenlight Equity Group acquires and operates cash-flowing multifamily assets in progressive metropolitan markets such as Salt Lake City, Idaho, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Columbus, Ohio. Greenlight targets consistent, solid returns for its investors and a healthy environment for residents by operating high-quality, safe, clean, affordable apartment communities. To learn more about Greenlight and to sign up for the investor list, go to www.glequitygroup.com.
Welcome to The Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seymour interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the apartment guy, Tate Seymour.
All right, here we go, everybody. Another episode of the Apartment Guys podcast, and today's is near and dear to me. Probably will be for a long time because a very important mentor and colleague and friend in the industry is on the show today, Mr. Tim Bratz himself. Really excited to have Tim. If you enjoy this episode, and I think you will, it's really helpful if you leave a quick rating and review on the podcast app that you're listening to this on. And it's very helpful to getting the message out far and wide to as many different people that we can about the availability of financial freedom through investing in real estate, specifically apartment buildings. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it with Mr. Tim Bratz. There's so much here that we get into that is just gold, guys. Like, so many takeaways. So get out a notebook. If you're on the treadmill or driving, don't get out a notebook, but listen and check out the show notes. There's some notes there in the show notes as well. So, and some links to some nice resources. So again, without further ado, let's just jump right into it with Mr. Tim Bratz. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Apartment Guys podcast. Mr. Tim Bratz is in the house today, which is a very exciting thing for me. Tim's been on the short list of desired guests for a long time now. And full disclosure, I just started a mastermind group with Tim and my team that we enrolled in a few weeks back and already had a 2-day mastermind event that was just fantastic. So full disclosure, we're working closely together, and I'm just thrilled to have him on as a guest on the podcast. A few things about Tim. He's the CEO and founder of Legacy Wealth Holdings, a real estate investment company that acquires and transforms distressed apartment buildings into high-yield assets for their own portfolio. Tim's current portfolio exceeds 4,000 units with a valuation of more than $350 million. Working in real estate, Tim has built a passive business and created residual income that allows him to live the lifestyle of his choice. I can't wait to talk to you about your family and all the amazing things you do, Tim, with your life. And really, he's here to educate, empower, and help others become financially free through commercial real estate. That's one of the things having gotten to spend some time with you here recently and get in your space, I can tell that you're very authentically focused and committed to helping others along the way, bringing others to their, to higher and higher success levels. And I know your mastermind groups mean a lot to you. So anyway, Tim, welcome, man. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here, Tate. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah. This is awesome. I feel giddy. So, one of the cool things for me about you, Tim, is you and I have a lot of similarities and a common background. Really, I have 12 years on you. I'm a little older than you are, but we both come from suburban Ohio. You're from Parma, and I'm from Anderson Township, down around Cincinnati. I went to Ohio University, the arch rival of Miami University, where you went.
We're all friends, man. We're all friends.
Yeah. The MAC conference is, it's good stuff. Those are good schools. And Oxford's a wonderful place to go to college. But I know enough about your story to kind of know where, if we drop in on your timeline and look at right around the time you were graduating from college and starting to think about moving into the business world. I know that you're wired as an entrepreneur. You have that in your blood. I've heard you tell stories about the things you did as kids, cutting your friend's hair and whatnot for money. And I know that you've got all that working for you. But how do you go from Tim Bratz, college guy, partying in the bars, hanging out with buddies every night, drinking, and just tearing it up in college in Oxford, to 35 years old, living in a beautiful house in Charleston with a wonderful young family and a commercial real estate empire? The going from point A to point B story is I can't wait to hear more about it.
So it's definitely not a straight line. I can promise you that. It is. It's filled with some speed bumps. It's filled with some peaks and a lot of valleys, and a lot of hard work the whole time. So no, I know we were talking, and my goals, and I was doing my New Year's resolutions when I was my senior year in college. I had these New Year's resolutions in 2007, going into 2007. And my New Year's resolution was reduce my binge drinking to 5 days per week, or I think it was 4 days per week. Because we were going up 5-6 days a week, and it was just partying all the time. And it's kind of funny looking back and where I was and kind of where I am now. I was like, oh man,
awesome.
No wonder. There's a lot of learning, right? There's a lot of growth that needed to come in with that. So now, when I was in college, as you mentioned, I was kind of entrepreneurial in high school. Now I wasn't starting my own business or anything, but I cut my buddy's hair and made money that way. I also had a job on the weekends. I also burned CDs and stuff back in the day and made people mix CDs and sold those. And so I always had like something going on. I was always encouraged by making money. I really wanted to be a doctor. I thought those are the highest paid professions when I was going through high school. So I really had the intent of being a doctor. And then my dad was a police officer, but he had a part-time business, and somehow got into this entrepreneurial or business type spirit when I got into college. And so took a bunch of business classes. I had an internship with a painting company, ended up painting houses in the summer. I had ran the crews, and I had to hire other people. I had to learn marketing and sales, and a lot of entrepreneurial really good principles in that. And then, worked for a big home building company because everybody's making money in real estate in 03 to 07 when I was going through college.
Yeah.
I worked for a big home builder and interned for them, and they were just throwing money around. They had so much excess cash and cash flow. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I was a money motivated kid at 20, 21 years old. So I'm like, I need to be in real estate. Growing up in Cleveland, when I graduated from college, my brother lived out in New York City. He's like, dude, when else can you live in New York City for free? Come and live with me. So I moved out to New York City in 2007. And I thought you got involved as a real estate person by getting your real estate license. So got my real estate license, somehow parked my license with a commercial brokerage instead of a residential brokerage. And what that means is I was brokering leases for businesses, either retail or office leases. And takes a long time to do that, right? Like, these are big contracts, they're long contracts, they're business contracts. Everybody in New York's a shark, and there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of attorney type stuff going on. So it took me like 7 or 8 months to close it. So this is early 2008. I closed my first deal, and the story. Like, it was 400 square feet. It's like the size of like two bedrooms.
Right.
And we signed a lease for $10,000 a month to a falafel shop on a 12-year lease term with 4% annual increases. And
I'm pretty sure I've eaten there. Actually, I know the one.
Yeah.
You can barely get in there. It's so tiny.
Yeah. And so I'm like, you do the math and it's this guy's making almost $2 million over the next 12 years, the landlord, for doing something one time. And that's when residual income hit me. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, and this guy, that wasn't the only spot. He had a bunch of retail spaces. He had a bunch of apartments above it. And I'm thinking, I need to be doing that, not brokering real estate. And so, crappy winter in living in New York. And I was like, I need to move down south. So I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina in summer of 2008. And just kind of analysis paralysis, right? I'm going to be a real estate investor. Let me go and learn everything. Let me buy a bunch of courses. Let me, try to like work for some other people who are doing deals and help them out with leasing. And I was just doing like some random odd job type stuff. And all of a sudden I'm ready to go and buy a house. And, October 2008 happens and like the entire economy collapses and Lehman Brothers, is going out of business and people walking out of the buildings in New York City with, I remember watching on TV with their boxes and possessions in their hand and just telling them go home, like these institutions that have been around for 100 years, all out of business. Mm-hmm. And me, 23-year-old kid, never done a deal in the worst housing recession ever, just shows up to the party saying, hey, I want to go and buy real estate. So good news is there were a lot of deals. Bad news is there was not a lot of money out there to loan on real estate. So I got creative, dude. I bought my first house on my credit card and personally did all the work to it. I physically improved it. I did landscaping, I did the painting, I changed out the carpet, I did light fixtures, flooring, all that stuff, and turned around, held an open house, sold that house in about 4 months later, a little less than that, to one of the neighbors, and I made a little over $13,000. And I'm thinking, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And this is supposed to be a horrible housing market. And I'm still making, this is the biggest check I've ever made in my entire life. I was 23. I had turned 24 while I owned the house. And so I'm thinking like, let me go do it again. So I went and did it again. Then I got into wholesaling. I started learning about wholesaling, went through that whole process and met people who knew that I had a good work ethic, who knew that I could find a good deal. And it was willing to put forth the effort, but maybe they didn't have the bandwidth to take on more deals. Maybe they had access to money, but didn't have the knowledge in real estate. And that's how I got my first private money lenders. People put up money. I did all the work. We figured out some sort of a split on the profits and went from there. So, accumulate a couple of properties. And at the age of 25, man, I had 10 units and had enough residual income, not passive income. Passive is very different than residual, but because I was personally self-managing all these things. But I had enough residual income that covered all my business expenses, all my business debt service, and all my personal expenses and all my personal debt service, and about $500 a month in excess cash. So I'm financially free. I'm 25 years old. I got it all figured out. I go and join the private club. I go and buy a Mercedes. I'm taking trips that I'm just throwing on my credit card. I got it all figured out. And eventually I'm chasing shiny objects in other businesses. So much so that were unproven, by the way, that I sold 9 of my 10 units. And for 2 years, just kind of drank the juice. And that ended up turning kind of bad. And I went completely broke in 2012. I had 25 grand in credit card debt. I had $80 in my bank account. I was selling, like side tables, to make 15, 20 bucks on Craigslist. I was selling off my DVDs at $2 or $3 a piece just to be able to go buy food. Wow. I'm paying for gas with coins out of the cup holder of my car. I'm doing all these things. Like I was borrowing. I had to borrow money to make the minimum payment on my credit card. And I'm like, holy shit, how did I get here? And I ended up being saved by selling my home. I ended up selling my house, and I had some equity built up because I bought it at a great price. I fixed it up. I created appreciation in it. Mm-hmm. And, I had it rented to a couple of my buddies, so they helped kind of cover some of the bills, and I still couldn't cover any of my bills. So I ended up selling my house. I had about $50,000 of equity built up into it. And from there, that kind of saved me. I was able to pay down some debt, pay back some people that I borrowed money from. And I essentially moved back to Cleveland, Ohio at the age of 27 and moved back in with my parents. And so I moved back in with my parents. I'm essentially pressing the reset button. And from there, I had a few people that I met down in Charleston who reached out to me and said, hey man, we started this other business so that way we could invest in real estate. And we'd love to partner up with you. And so, it's funny how like one door closes, another door opens kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And they reached out to me and we ended up striking a deal. They said, hey, they got money. They were willing to put up a few $100,000 and eventually invested a little over $1 million. And I did all the work. So I'd find the deals. I'd, oversee project management. I'd do all the negotiations. I'd swing the hammer myself. Sometimes I had leasing, rent collections, maintenance calls, all that stuff, the sales of the properties, everything for about 3 years, and ended up having that partnership, built it up to about 140 doors. And the partnership just we clashed eventually. My value continued to increase. Their value, they didn't want to bring any money. They wanted to start charging interest on their money and set plus on top of their equity that they had. And they had 67% of all the deals that we did. So there was a lot of things that kind of shook out, and we just decided, hey, let's separate. Let's go our separate ways. And we ended up doing that. So liquidated the portfolio in late 2015 and throughout 2016. But really, and that sucked because I just worked my ass off for 3 years and had to press the reset button again at the age of 29 now. That was 30. Yeah, I was 30. So now I'm pressing reset again at the age of 30. And really, again, one door closes, another door opens. It was a huge setup for better things, and had a lot of people reach out to me and said, hey, I heard you out of that exclusive partnership. Can I lend you money? Can we do deals together? Can we joint venture? I got back into flipping some houses and stuff. And just continued to build the business. So I built this flipping business. I built a property management company, and I passively was kind of picking up apartment buildings every now and then, and built that up to a few hundred units over the next couple of years. My flipping company's flipping 80 to 100 houses a year in the turnkey space. Built up a residential management company that kind of handled all the houses that we were flipping, and a lot of referrals from other people who were flipping rental properties, and they were managing my own stuff. So we were up to 800 units that I think that we were managing at the time.
Wow.
Which made it one of the largest residential management companies in Cleveland too. And I ended up, being on vacation in 2017 and realizing, as I'm reflecting on my goals and my net worth, that 90% of my net worth came from my apartments, and it was only like 10% of my time. And I'm thinking, like, what if we just pivoted? What if I pivoted the whole team and everybody just focused their resources and their mindset on only apartment buildings? And that's what we ended up doing. So in 2017, stopped flipping houses, stopped building wealth for other people in that way, right? And not holding on to any of the equity. Now I just focused on building up my own portfolio. And in the rest of 2017, early 2018, picked up a couple hundred more units. I was up to 400, 500, 600 units, something like that. And in middle of 2018, I bought a portfolio of 730 doors that just doubled my portfolio. And I picked up a couple other things at the end of the year. And I jumped up to like 1,500 units in 2018. 2019, we went on a tear. And 2018, I also got a little bit of momentum in the coaching space. And so I was just talking about it on social media, dude. Like, talking about how I structured deals and how I found deals, and what my expected profit was going to be on certain deals. And then people started hitting me up saying, hey, dude, do you coach? Do you mentor? Do you consult? And that turned into like just me having 15, 20 people at my office in Cleveland. And then it turned into me being courted by a whole bunch of different like publishing companies who wanted a multifamily guru. And I was like, listen, I'm not a guru. I actually do deals, And so there was one company that was highly recommended. I went and partnered up with them. And so that kind of took place in 2018 as well. And that really opened me up to more deal flow and a little bit more private capital as well. Because a lot of people came out. They said, hey, man, I'm going out doing deals in 2019. they weren't handling all the small stuff, but some of the big stuff they brought to me. And some of the big stuff they said, hey, I don't have the balance sheet or the liquidity or the experience. Tim, will you partner with me?
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to bring that. And then other people brought me deals or said, hey, Tim, I love what you're doing, but I don't want to do all the work that the operators are doing. Can I just passively invest with you, or I could raise money or have my own money, and let me just kind of put it with you guys. And we ended up working collectively with them. So, it just kind of opened me up. The more active I was on social media and the more active I was in sharing my insights and my experiences. And a lot of people think like, dude, if he's so successful, why is he telling everybody about how he does what he does and just creating competition? I don't see it that way, man. I see it as creating collaboration, right? Like doing deals together. You and I have even talked about doing some deals together and partnering up or swapping deals back and forth and some other things. So in just a short amount of time. So like, that's what it's all about. Like I make some money on the education, but I make 90% of my money in doing deals, right? So that's why I do the education. So anyways, 2019, we pick up 2,000 doors. 2020, COVID hits, mayhem. The education goes into a tailspin, and everything is like, everybody's freaking out about operations. And I wouldn't say we freaked out, but we definitely laid off the gas from acquisitions. And we focused heavily on operations. We still picked up about 1,000 doors. And,
wow.
So anyways, that put us we're at 4,300 doors. As I'm sitting here talking to you today, 4,288. I don't want to round up.
That's awesome. Love it. Thanks for your accountability on that. Dude, wow. So you're right. That was not a straight line from A to B. And there's so much there. I took like 2 pages of notes here in front of me. So just quite a bit to unpack. But the overall takeaway here is, for me, is, and you told me some things that I didn't know, like actually quite a few stories there that I didn't know. And your resilience is remarkable, and your ability to bounce back at least twice from pretty major setback, and having to move home, be with, live with your parents after, that was in your late 20s.
Yep.
I know where I was in my late 20s, and the last thing I was thinking about was living with my parents or wanted to think about. And so I'm sure that was incredibly difficult for you. That kind of almost a rock bottom sort of, in terms of your business anyway.
Yeah.
And then, then to do it again at age 30, after your initial partnership kind of dissolved and you liquidated those properties, to start again from scratch and from zero. Just, you hear people talk about how if you take a millionaire or a billionaire and you take all their money away and their phone and access to all their accounts and everything else, and you put them in the middle of a city, give them 6 weeks or whatever, they're going to figure out a way to become a millionaire again real quickly.
Yep.
And I think that, you clearly have really all the ingredients that it takes, obviously, to be very successful. I think the fact that you give as much as you do is probably as big a key to your success as anything else. Just being part of your tribe and knowing how people really gravitate to you. And I mean, I think there's like 60 or 70 or 80 people in our group, and that's just one of your groups. And, that's amazing. And as you said, at one point, the resources and everything's available inside of those groups. And I want to talk about masterminds here in a little bit with you, but when you're broke in 2012, there's so much to unpack, Tim. And I guess for me, like, I pretty much know the answer to some, or at least a little bit of this, but what would you say are your guiding principles that really got you through those crashes, like those low points, those resets that you had to do in your career and in your business? Where did, to bounce back as quickly as you did and as powerfully as you did, and like in this, I mean, now where you are is like amazing. what would you say were like the key guiding principles that got you there?
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. Actually, it's a question I've done hundreds of podcasts, and that's never a question that anybody's ever asked me. Um, yeah, looking back, so first of all, you gave me a lot of credit for a lot of great things. I really appreciate that. The reality is, like, I didn't know anything else, dude. I didn't have anything else to fall back on, like what else was I going to do? I've only known real estate since I graduated from college. So like, I'm going to go get a friggin' job somewhere, like, after being financially free and then being an entrepreneur my entire time out of school. Maybe I considered it, but it wasn't like a real thing, a real option for me. And so first of all, like, I didn't have a fallback plan, which actually is, it's kind of like burning the ships,
Right.
It's kind of like creating a constraint on yourself where I got to make this work, and I'm not in some industry that's it's a tech startup, where it's like unproven and we don't know if this company is going to just be the next Uber or completely collapse. Real estate's an industry that's been around since the beginning of time, like since there were civilizations, and wealth has been measured in land ownership. So like, I knew that it wasn't an experiment. I knew that real estate created more millionaires and billionaires than any other industry combined, or preserved more wealth than any other industry combined.
Yeah.
And so I knew it would work eventually, and that's one of the things that I'd also say is, like, one, I burned the ships, didn't have a fallback plan, created constraints where I had to make it work. Okay. So that was number one. Number two was I kept a long-term vision. Like, I wasn't trying, I mean, I would have liked it, but I wasn't necessarily trying to get rich quick. I was trying to build wealth. And one of the things I've always done is I would sacrifice short-term benefits for long-term gains. And I would always say, hey, don't pay me now, give me equity on the back end. And dude, there were some skinny days, right? There were some days where I couldn't pay for gas. I couldn't pay for food. I'm wondering, like, how I'm going to keep the light bills on, kind of a thing. And because I didn't take the money up front, I had many times as much money on the back end by taking equity. One of my early mentors told me that millionaires and billionaires are made from equity in deals. It's not from taking fees. It's not from trading your time for money. It's from trading your time for equity in deals, because that can compound and that can grow significantly. And that always sat with me. It always resonated with me. And so whenever there was an opportunity, and I probably, I could have balanced it out a little bit better, take a little bit less equity and take some fees or some sort of upfront compensation too, so I didn't have to struggle. But again, those struggles helped me out. Like, every time my financial thermostat dropped below a certain degree, I was like, oh crap, I got to get back to work, right? I got to get the money back up. And it forced me to move forward. So yeah, I think those are two main things. I think creating constraints, to make sure that I don't have a fallback plan, and two, maintaining a long-term vision are two of the biggest ones that I would say helped me kind of push through that. The first time in 2012, like, I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids. That was a little bit different of a story. In 2015, I was married. I just had a daughter, and I just built a house. And so when that kind of collected, it was the two most stressful weeks of my entire life, because it wasn't just like potentially losing everything. It was my business partners who had a lot of money lawyering up against me, who had equity but no money, no cash, right? I wasn't cash rich necessarily. Lawyering up. And so this attorney bills $400, $500, $600 an hour starts accumulating. I was like, oh man, but thankfully I joined a mastermind earlier part of that year. And they're like, listen, dude, go back to generating revenue. Revenue solves all problems. Let the attorneys handle what they do. You go back to doing what you do. I just got the chills thinking about it, because it was so stressful and it was such a difficult time for me, that I was like, all right. I trust these guys. They are where I want to be. Let me take their advice from a business perspective. I paid the attorneys and I went back to flipping houses, and I just kept on generating more revenue. And you know what happened after a few weeks is my business partners reached out and they said, hey, the only people getting rich here are going to be the attorneys. Let's sit down and hash this thing out ourselves. And that's when we came to an agreement and decided to liquidate the portfolio and go our separate ways. So, that was a very trying time, especially because I had a lot more to lose at that time, or a lot more to risk. And but at the same time, like, all right, what's the worst thing that could happen? I had $500,000 of equity or something at the time built up into that company. And so I walk away from $500,000. I wouldn't like it, right? But it was majority of my net worth at the time. But my wife was still working. I could go out and flip houses and at least keep food on the table. Like, worst case scenario wasn't that bad. It sucked, don't get me wrong, but it got me to where I am today. I don't think I would change it. And I think a lot of us build up worst case scenario in our head to be way worse than it really is, right? Like, we paint these pictures and tell ourselves these stories that likely will never come true,
Yeah, totally.
Or it won't be that bad. We paint the worst case scenario when we think that's what's going to happen, but it very rarely is, very rarely.
Yeah, dude, so much there. Again, like the mastermind piece where they kind of provided a voice of clarity for you in a really dark time and gave you the power of being able to simply focus on what you have control over and your locus of control and your power point of being able to impact the world and the universe and with your purpose. Get in there, do what you do, make some money, pay the lawyers, let them do their thing, and move the heck on, right?
Dude, you need that. You need people who, I mean, think about me. I had worked my ass off for 3-4 years with these guys. My entire net worth is in this company, right? They used to be very good friends of mine. Like, we're at my wedding, like we're hanging out. I lived with them for several months. I got a wife, I got a newborn baby. I'm building a house at the time that this is all going down and had just moved into this house. And like, dude, when you are in that situation, you are so emotional that you cannot think with clarity. You cannot think logically and with reason. And you need people in your corner that can step out and say, hey man, here's the right thing to do. Do it this way, do it that way. Here's what you need to be doing, because you can't make decisions, Tim, if you're in an emotional state. Not good business decisions anyways.
Right.
And dude, you got to have those people in your corner. So like, that's why you need a mentor. That's why you need to be in a mastermind. It's why you need people that have that sense of reason and emotional intelligence to be able to give you the insight and lend some direction on what to do in certain situations.
Yeah. And emotional intelligence is something that's been kind of on the tip of my tongue this whole conversation. It's such a key component of resilience in general, and starting over from scratch and leaving a partnership gracefully with burning as few bridges as you can behind you. It's also a big part of dealing with like that worst case scenario thing. And I think it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to go, okay, what is the worst case scenario here? Let's bring it on. Let's like talk about what really could go wrong and really go wrong. And is that like acceptable? Will I live through it, or will people that I love live through it and be okay? And, oftentimes the answer to that is yes. Right. And so, it's almost like we've got this fear of worst case scenario that in a lot of cases is loaded and doesn't really need to be, right?
Yeah. And it's a story, dude. It's a story we make up in our head. I can't remember who the speaker was, but I remember sitting in the audience one time and listening to this individual speak on mindset and personal development and stuff like that. And they said, like, we build up these stories in our head, but the reality is like faith and fear are the exact same thing. Both of them are believing in something in the future that may or may not come true, right? That has not yet come to pass. Both of them are stories in our head that we make up of something that has never happened. The difference is faith is positive and fear is negative. And so here's the crazy part. Here's the awesome part, actually. because it's stories in our head, that means we're making it up, which means we have the decision of whether or not we want that story to be positive or negative.
Yep.
So it's up to us whether we're faithful and opportunistic or fearful and pessimistic about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We get to decide, right? And I think life just beats the shit out of people. Right? I apologize for swearing, but just beats people down. And like everything out there is so negative that people just naturally go negative all the time. It's a muscle you got to exercise in order to think on the positive side. And one of the things I don't know, man, my mom was always positive about everything growing up. And I think that really was conveyed to me in a way that, like, I don't know, like what's a worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, I move back in with my parents, right? Like I'm not in danger in any way. I'm not at risk of losing my life. I still have my health. I still have my mindset. I can still go back to work. Like that's not that bad of a worst case scenario, right? But in my mind, it's everything. Oh my gosh, I'm 27. I'm moving back in with my parents. My buddies have these big jobs and they've been working on for 5 or 6 years now, and they're making big money and blah, 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 and like got their own apartments and all this. And so in your head, it's a big deal, right? The reality is there's not a lot of danger. Worst case scenario is really not that bad. Versus, what about the faith? What about the best case scenario? What could happen? Oh, I don't want to buy apartment buildings because I could lose money. Yeah, you could also get rich. Like I don't know. Well, at least losing money, you go back to zero, and there's a floor. Getting rich, there's limitless potential. The sky's the limit, right? Like you can go as high as you possibly want. And when you balance and weigh that out, you're like, oh, best case scenario is a lot better than worst case scenario, right? Like, so let's just go on that side of things and focus on that.
Yeah, and if you believe in law of attraction oriented thinking and or at least and I have mixed feelings and thoughts about law of attraction in particular, but if you believe that your thoughts at some level do create your reality or contribute to your reality and really embrace that, then you get that story, the choice that you're making when you pick whichever story you choose is truly a choice. And it's something that you have total control over. And to me, when you really get that, that's almost like graduating from junior high to high school or high school to college in the emotional intelligence curriculum. Mm-hmm. It's a really basic thing that we choose the story that we assign to whatever happens in our life, and
it's like learning to read, mm-hmm. It's like, it opens you up so much. Once you understand that we have 100% control, not of what happens to us. Life happens to all of us, but we control how we respond to what happens to us. It's our decision. And when you take ownership over your life like that, it's like, dude, it opens you up to so many new things and so many more opportunities and people wanting to do business with you because you're not some negative Nancy complaining about garbage all the time, So by staying positive, it just, if I think about pizza real hard right now, is pizza going to show up on my doorstep? Probably not. But from a law of attraction standpoint of like just being positive, guess what? I attract positive people in my life, right? Because I don't attract negative people. They want to go be negative and they go hang out with other negative people. I want to be positive, so I align with positive people. And I'm talking with you right now on this podcast because you're a positive person, right? So there's definitely some dynamics of law of attraction that are very much on point.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's not really as simple as some people make it out to be, in my opinion, but some of it is right on the money. And Tony Robbins, I think, says it best when he says that life happens for you and not to you. Mm-hmm. And even that's a story, right? Like he's making that up and that's not necessarily true, but that's what it means to him. That's what life is to him. Like everything that happens in his world is happening for him, whether or not he understands at the time how or why, that's a different story, right? But if you have a core belief,
you respond in a different way if that's your story,
Yeah, so exactly.
All of a sudden, because you respond in a different way than you would otherwise, all of a sudden, the way that you respond fits that narrative, mm-hmm. and you turn everything positive, and then you're not depressed, you're not sad. You're like, there's a lot of good stuff that can come from it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's such good stuff. One of the things that I've heard you talk to is the whole concept of, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or something to that effect. And I could not agree more. Like I look in my life and I'm just very, I'm 47 now, and I reserve the right to be super picky about who I have in my space. And so the people that are close to me are people that I've handpicked and chosen as people that I would either want to emulate or be a contribution to, and have that reciprocal stuff going on. But getting into this mastermind with you and into the tribe with your staff and your team and everybody else in the group has been such an elevating experience for me and my team. And, I was wondering if you could kind of speak to, we talked about how critical a role that mastermind played at that point in your life when you needed that voice of clarity to keep you going in a good direction business wise. Can you speak to what masterminds have meant to you kind of since that point, and let's say the last 3 years since 2017, when things started really cooking for you?
Yeah, man. I think, so let me go back to 2015. I was invited out to a mastermind, which was like a 2-day event, sit around a round table with 15 entrepreneurs, talk about your problems and the biggest struggles you're facing in life or business. And then the collective brain power in the room comes up with a solution. Hey, listen, I went through that here, and here's what it worked for me. Hey, I went through that, and here's what didn't work, so don't try this. And like, you just bounce ideas, and you need that outside perspective, right? Like, you can't see the picture if you're sitting in the frame. So you need somebody outside the frame to be able to tell you what's going on inside your picture. And so for me, I went out to that mastermind. It was 2015 was the most transformative year probably of my life. I became a dad that year. I joined a mastermind that year, hired my first employee that year. And from that mastermind and from hiring that employee and understanding business elements, I mean, before that, I was a solopreneur. I'm like, how the hell do people do this? I see these big businesses. I don't understand how they build out these organizations and these systems and processes. And like, I didn't even know what a process map was. I didn't know to have checklists. I didn't know SOPs. I didn't know any of that stuff. And I was just doing the work. I just worked hard. I would outwork anybody, up to that point in my life. And that'll get you to a certain point. I made $100,000 for the first time in 2014. But in 2015, by joining the mastermind and learning how to work smart, I tripled my income in the next 10 months after that mastermind. I made $400,000 or something in the next 10 months. And then I have a baby, right? And then I built a house. And it was a very, like I said, transformative type of year for me. And I realized the power over the next couple of years of being in masterminds. I almost got like addicted to it. I started joining other masterminds. I started my own mastermind in 2017, and it opened up even more doors and opportunities just because like I could then choose who I wanted in my mastermind instead of plugging into where somebody else is choosing who's in their mastermind. So it allowed me to really really surround myself with people going in the right direction. Since your questions over the past 3-4 years, I know how much it's transformed me. I became very intentional about making sure my team plugs into masterminds as well, because I know what it's done now for them. Fatty Bumitri came out to my first mastermind in 2017. I had to guarantee him his ticket in order for him to come out. He wouldn't spend $2,000 to come and hang out for a day and go to an Eastern Conference Finals game with LeBron James. Like, he wouldn't spend $2,000 on it. And I had to talk him into it. And he came out. And after he came to that event, and for anybody who doesn't know Fatty, he's my chief investment officer and in-house counsel now. He had his own law practice, worked his butt off, never made more than $100,000 because he's ethnic in the Lebanese community. It always did favors for everybody. So although he's working 16 hours a day, he never billed for that many. He really only sent his bills to me, I think. I don't know. And so he never really made more than $100,000, came out to that mastermind and realized what his potential could be. And all of a sudden, he realized that everybody in his community looks to him as the attorney to help them direct their money and invest properly in the right deals. And he raised $700,000 for one of my deals the following month. And then did another deal, I think, at the end of the year. And within 18 months or something, he ended up coming and working in-house with me, and realized that there was more collaborative power in us partnering up than either of us doing business on our own. And that would have never happened without a mastermind. My COO, Matt Carlin, as you know him, plugged into masterminds. I took him out to masterminds. It's very hard to go out to events and then come back and try to convey that to your team. I come back all riled up and I just like vomit ideas and create chaos. And your team's like, whoa, dude, pump the brakes. You know, it might've been a good idea then, but let's come back to reality. And I need them on the same wavelength as me when we're out there doing deals. So I started plugging him in. He started getting better access to like, I'm not the COO type of guy, right? Like I talk, you know, I train, I coach, I'll go do deals. I'm ready, fire, then aim. He's very much ready, aim, maybe fire. And so we're a really good dichotomy in our business, because we kind of hold each other accountable in certain parts. But what it allowed him to do is make it easier for him to fire sooner by taking him out to different masterminds and plugging him into different events, so he could better create systems and processes and procedures and checklists and all those different kinds of things. Same thing with my acquisitions guy, director of acquisitions, Nick Burton. You know, he's a young kid. I could train him, but he hasn't been like through the wisdom that you get from living life, right? Like there's a lot of things you get kind of sidetracked, you learn from doing. And that's been able, like I've been able to take him at the age of 22, or he was 20 when he came on board. Wow. And I started plugging him into masterminds at the age of 22. And him, from joining those masterminds, all of a sudden he is a nationally recognized acquisitions guy, you know, in commercial real estate. And he's 26 years old today. So like, you think about some of this stuff. Is it because he's hanging out with Tim Bratz? Well, I think it's because he's hanging out with Tim Bratz, and Tim Bratz has hung out with a lot of the right people, you know, and through osmosis, I got the insights and I conveyed that to him. And then all of a sudden I plugged him into those events, and now he's hanging out with everybody else, and he's getting trained by different people who are lighting the world on fire in whatever their industry is, or in single family acquisitions or whatever that ends up being. So it's just, you know, it's making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people, and making sure your team is educated and surrounding yourself with the right people as well.
Does Nick get what a lucky kid he is in his early 20s to have locked into what he locked into?
He's getting, I think he's becoming a little bit more aware of all that stuff. And he's a very unique guy, because most kids come out of school and they don't know how good they have it, right? They think that all companies are this good, all companies are this fun. Oh, I can go and, you know, have a happy hour and blah, 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 and this and that, and work from home and go to the Keys. And, you know, like he's in Texas, you know, he's like, hey man, I really want to travel the world. I was like, why don't you? He's like, really? I can go travel? I was like, dude, you got a phone, you got internet. They have phone and internet in Texas. They have it in the Netherlands. Do they have that in, you know, Taiwan? Dude, go and travel. Like, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids. You can do your work from anywhere in the world. You should be doing that. And I think that kind of maybe resonated with him. And now he's like, dude, I got this figured out, you know? And hey, he'll make multiple six figures as a 26-year-old kid, and he's vested into equity in all of our deals. So like, he does have it figured out. Like he's in a really, really good spot. And what's cool is he's, you know, 9 years younger than me, and I'll be able to retire sooner because he'll just keep on working. Right. Yeah. So, you know, and he, like you said, is hanging out with Tim Bratz, and Tim Bratz has, you know, the counsel and has been heavily informed by amazing thought leaders and business leaders and other people in your mastermind. But not only that, him hanging out with Tim Bratz means that he is actually going to go to the mastermind himself and get to be in the presence of all those people himself, which there's no better way to profoundly shift your mindset, in my opinion, than just to hang out in the same space as people who are doing what you want to do,
3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I just can't think of a better way to do it. And to do it in a mastermind format where everybody is very intentional about what they're bringing to the group and the advice that they're giving you. You've got basically, in your case, you had 15 people. I've been in a mastermind with about 15 people, and you've got at that point 15 coaches that are all thinking about, okay, if I'm in Tate's shoes, or if I'm in Tim's shoes right now at this point in his career, what's he most need? What's he most need to hear? What is he missing right now that he doesn't see? Like, what blind spots might he have? All that stuff. You can get a lot of great stuff from an individual mentor. And we talk about mentorship all the time, but man, masterminds, there's nothing like them. There's just the collaborative intelligence of a group like that is amazing. And it takes a really strong, confident, generous leader to make them super powerful and cool. And you definitely are that. And
I appreciate it.
It's an awesome experience to be a part of.
Dude, the beauty is that you don't have just one mentor. You said, you had 15 mentors, and there's different people that will resonate at different seasons of your life,
Mm-hmm.
And so you can stay in one group and have different people that, hey, listen, this guy's really got it dialed in on the health side of things. Like, that's something I've been lacking. I'm going to go lean on him. Maybe he doesn't have the biggest business, but like he's got six pack abs, right? Like, I'm going to go and talk to this guy because that's what I need to work on right now. Or, I'm having a tough time with my wife. Let me go and talk to this guy because I know he works with his wife and they have an amazing relationship and an amazing chemistry. And like, I'm struggling with that right now. Or how do I become a better dad, more present with my kids? Like, this person over here. And so you can lean on different people in the group for different things, not just about business, because they'll all excel, and we'll see. They'll all excel, and they'll all be superior to you in one way or another, right? Like, everybody in the entire world, there's 7 billion people who are superior to me in some way. I don't know exactly what that is. You got to talk to them and figure out what that is. But a mastermind for sure. Because and here's what's great about the group though, is that these people have common values and common values. That they believe in themselves enough that they're willing to invest in themselves. Like that's something that's not really talked about very much.
Yeah.
But it is a huge separator of people. Like, paying to get into a mastermind, hey, it covers the bills, like for whoever owns it. But the reality is, like, if you're in a good mastermind, if you're in a mastermind that's really trying to make an impact, like, it's inconsequential, right? What that is. But when you join a mastermind, like, paying to be in the mastermind is from the act of being a member in that mastermind, tells the universe, I am worth $20,000. I am worth $30,000. I am worth investing $1,000 a month, even, right? Like, by making that commitment, it's a huge differentiator between the people who succeed and don't succeed. And I don't know if it's, chicken or egg type thing, because, are you successful because you're in a mastermind, or are you in a mastermind because you think successfully?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, I already think I'm worth it. And that alone, you make the investment. Now you're looking for ways to get a return on the investment, right? You're looking for ways to make sure that you get your money back times 10 by doing deals and connecting and all those different things. And dude, when you stroke a check for tens of thousands of dollars for a mastermind, you walk around with a little bit more posture, right?
Yeah.
You get just puffed out a little bit more. You feel better about yourself because you're like, damn it, dude, I am worth it, Yeah. And that's it's a differentiating factor amongst people who are at this level and are not at that level.
Mm-hmm. Do you have coaches, or a personal coach or business coaches in your world?
Not one-on-one. I have a team of A players. I have multiple attorney friends. So I'm talking to them about deals and structures and all that kind of stuff all the time. That are, in my own mastermind and in other masterminds. I'm in like 5 or 6 different masterminds. Some of them I only go to once a year. And they all have their own little purpose. So I'm in a multifamily mastermind that's just for multifamily, and I get a lot of insights there. I only go about once a year, but it's good. I'm in one that's mostly residential real estate, but I can bring my team to that one. And so I bring my COO or I bring my acquisitions guy, and he goes and gets insights on how like residential investors are going out and getting deals and bringing them back and conveying that into our systems and processes and operations. I'm in some local masterminds that makes me kind of a local expert and really develop relationships to buy deals locally. I'm in national masterminds. I'm in some masterminds that aren't even real estate related, that are just e-commerce and other marketing type masterminds. I really like those because they just have a different angle on business. So, dude, I think it's really important to be in multiple masterminds because you're going to get multiple insights. I will say this: if you're going to pick a mastermind, you got to stick with it, right? Like nobody's going to go and light the world on fire in 12 months. As much as you think and you want to accomplish it, as ambitious as you are, year one is planting the seeds, right? You gotta be there for year two, which is the cultivation stage, and year three is when the harvest happens. So you gotta give it 36 months. You gotta make a 36-month commitment to anything. I see guys coming in and out of different masterminds all the time, and they leave you with a dirty feeling because they're just transactional. They're trying to pull as much and extract as much as they possibly can. They're not there for the relational connection of the mastermind. So if you join a mastermind, you got to give it a 36-month commitment. Go out there and say, hey, I'm going to do this for 36 months. I'm going to commit the next 3 years to the relationships that, like, I'm in Collective Genius, right? Collective Genius is one of the top, especially for like residential investors, one of the top real estate masterminds for residential investors. There's a few multifamily guys in there, and I do business with some people in there. They source deals for me. Maybe they invest with me. They want to become coaching students or whatever. But really, that's one of the ones that's mostly for my team to go out and do that. And where's it going to go with this? But there's people in Collective Genius. When I joined, I was like the new kid on the block, and I was kind of like, everybody's talking about this Tim Bratz kid, and he's got this portfolio of hundreds of units or thousands of units at that time. And a lot of the guys who were in there looked at me, who were in there for a long time, looked at me and they're like, I've seen guys like this come and go. I've seen them transact before and then get spun out. And I'm like, guys, I'm not that guy, right? I'm not looking to come in, take a bunch of private money, and then never come back to another event or not renew after a year. Like, I'm I understand relationship capital is more important than financial capital. You can do a lot more with relationship capital than you can with financial capital. And so year two, I renewed. Year three, I think it's my fourth year or something in CG now. 2018, 19, 2021. Yeah, fourth year. And guess what? People started coming out of the woodwork after 2, 3, 4 years. They're like, you know what, Bratz, I got some money. Can I deploy it with you? Hey, Bratz, I'm going to plug into your event. Hey, Bratz, I found some deals. Can we joint venture? And if I would have been transactional about it, not only would I not have gotten that business, but I probably never would have gotten that business because people would have seen me as a transactional type of individual.
Yeah.
When I see people coming and going, like I know that they're in it just for extraction and not for reciprocation. And so if you're going to join a mastermind, guys, make sure you're joining one and staying with it for at least 36 months.
Yeah, and make sure that you're showing up in a state of service and contribution, right? Because that's the antidote to what you were just saying about being transactional. Is showing up. How can I help this guy that's talking right now, or that's sitting in front of me or next to me, or that I'm one-on-one with, or that is sharing with the group? What do I have to contribute to him? What resources can I put in front of him, or connections can I make for him or her, for that matter? And like that, there's magic in all of that, and you just can't get that anywhere else. But yeah, so showing up I think in life in general as somebody in service and somebody in contribution is ironically one of the most efficient ways to your own personal success. And it always comes back, as they say.
And here's the thing, Tate, it doesn't just come back. It comes back many times what you put out there. It's not you get what you give. No, you get many times more than what you give. So when you understand that principle, now you're like, how much can I give? How much can I invest in other people? From a selfish standpoint, because it comes back, not only like, and it feels good, right? From a moral standpoint, because it's the right thing to do in the first place. But at the very least, give just because it does come back many times over, and you're going to see, and you're going to become a huge giver just because you understand what it does. And you're not creating competition, you're creating collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So 40, what was it? 43, 20, how many doors?
4288.
4288. So I've already, I know what you're shooting for this year, but why don't you tell the listeners what you want to do this year?
Yeah, so I'm actually selling about 2,000 units.
Okay.
There are some properties that are just smaller properties. I'm selling everything under 100 units. I'm selling some of my C-class type stuff. So I'm going to sell about half my portfolio. I'm in the process of doing that right now. Some things are already under contract. Other things are going under contract, and kind of a lot of moving parts right now, actually. And I'm just I'm taking one step back in order to take many steps forward. The goal, as soon as this stuff transacts, and I'm in the process of buying 550 units and some other stuff anyway. So it'll pop back up pretty quickly, but I'm going to sell these. And the goal this year is 4,000 doors, more doors. So on top of the 2,500 that I keep, if I can be at about 6,000 doors by the end of the year, I'm going to be pretty happy about that. And then the idea is another 4,000 doors next year. And that'll put me right at about $1 billion of portfolio value. And it's not all mine, right? Like I have joint venture partners, I have equity investors and all that kind of stuff, but a good chunk of it is. And so as we pay down principal over the next 20, 30 years, as the properties appreciate over the next 20, 30 years, eventually that portfolio is worth $2 billion. And all of a sudden, my chunk of it is worth 500 million. That's a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah. You can live on that. I mean, it's a start, right?
Yeah. Start.
You could buy a major league soccer team for that amount of money these days. That's about what they're going for.
I wouldn't stop eating Kraft macaroni and cheese. I just eat more.
You just eat more of it. That's awesome. Well, one of the secrets to your success, I think that I've heard you speak to before, is how you are able to keep things simple conceptually and communicate very powerfully and effectively those concepts. I know that when I hear you coach, my colleagues and in our mastermind and in our group, you make things sound so much less daunting than I think a lot of people have in their head that it is. It's just a matter of getting that next capital source. Go get it. Go find it. Pick up the phone. Go. Let's go. Kind of thing. Yeah. And I love that so much. It's super inspiring to me, and it's something I try to emulate myself because as we all know, the confused mind says no, right? So keeping things understandable and simple to the point. I think when it comes to working with, especially with investors, and people that aren't necessarily real estate savvy to the degree that you are anyway, like all that stuff is really important, and I think makes you particularly powerful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Listen, I'm a blue collar kid from Cleveland, Ohio, right? My dad's a cop. My mom was a school teacher. I went to a good school, right? Like I partied just as much as anybody else in that school though. And got a marketing degree. And really what I learned was when I got out of there, I saw my mom being so gracious and giving all the time. I saw my dad really being emotionally intelligent and thinking about things, in a very reasonable way. And I think those are a couple of traits that really conveyed to me. But like, dude, if it's too complex, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And if I don't get it, then I'm not going to do it. Right. I don't know. I can't think at that level. And I see people coming in, like springing these big words and these crazy philosophies and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, don't show me how genius you are by making things complex and using big words and complicating it so nobody can understand it. I was like, dude, show me how genius you are by how simple you can make it so that everybody can understand it. And if you can communicate to the masses, guess what? You can then attract more money. You can then attract more deals. You can then, have a better quality of life.
Yeah.
For whatever you're looking to do. And nobody thinks you're pretentious. Nobody,
Right.
like I don't know. Am I intentionally that way? Now I am. Before I was just a simpleton, I guess. And I'm not to try to like deprecate myself or anything, but like I have a decent, I'm decently smart, right? I studied. I'm an A/B student. I'm not stupid by any means, but when I became aware that I can understand some of these more complex concepts. I look at it and I'm like, dude, there's gotta be an easier way. Like, why is it this complex? It doesn't need to be that complicated. Like, why do you need to, have 15 spreadsheets in an Excel calculator in order to underwrite a deal? I was like, you don't, right? Like, you need to understand the 1% rule. You need to understand that if monthly rent is 1% of what your all-in price is per unit, guess what? It'll cash flow. And so that's all I need to know. Like, yeah, you could dial it in a little bit deeper than that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it to my commercial mortgage broker who's going to underwrite it because the bank's going to underwrite it the exact same way as he is. Right. Like, I don't have to do that. There's other people who are going to do it anyways. Why not just let them do that? And so there's things like that where I don't know. I just question the system. I never went to a course. I never took a class or read a book on how to do this stuff. So I just kind of took the most basic, simple ideas and I duplicated it in a what's been a complex industry for a very long time. And that's why I think we've made some waves. That's why I think we've kind of jumped up, and that's why my reputation a lot of times kind of precedes myself. Where people are like, dude, I heard you just do it differently. Like, what's so different about you? Why are you so different, Bratz? And I was like, dude, I think at a third grade level, and that's how I teach this stuff. And a lot of people appreciate it,
Well, and the nice thing about multifamily is that it can be taught at that level because it's not rocket science, right? It's real estate. There's terminology to understand, but at the end of the day, it's investing, it's return on investments, it's your net operating income. There's not a whole lot, more to it. And I think some people try to make themselves sound smart and whatnot by overcomplicating it. And
it's adding, subtracting, and some percentages, like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially from an investor perspective, I was in a Clubhouse. Have you discovered Clubhouse yet? The app?
Yeah, I've gotten a bunch of invites, but I actually have an Android. I have a Google phone.
Yeah.
So I haven't jumped on yet, but I think I'm going to come to the dark side and get an iPhone on Friday.
There you go. I'm sure that it'll be available on Android soon. I was in a group with Grant Cardone and talking about branding in particular, and really what you're branding is the customer experience, or in our case, the investor experience, the partner experience, making it super easy to understand, to sign up, to take the next steps, to to fill out your investor form. Like you just want to make that stuff so easy for your investor. In this case, that they can't even get it wrong. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like we've studied this stuff. Can you imagine taking this verbiage and these ideas to somebody who's never studied real estate before, and they're making money in e-commerce, or they're making money in, I don't know, marketing, or they're making money in, some other industry, or they're a teacher, or they're somebody who works for a company and the 401k, and all of a sudden you're trying to, convey these like advanced concepts to them. It's not going to happen, and confused people do nothing. So you better figure out a way to simplify it. Otherwise you're in, you're going to have a hard time, going out there and trying to raise capital or trying to source deals and go through that whole process. So, I think long-term you're going to be in a much better spot by simplifying things and showing people how smart you are by how simple you can make it.
Yeah. Simple and powerful. Well, speaking of making things simple, easy to understand, easy to learn, speak a little bit about your commercial empire event, your 2-day event that you do.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that. That definitely wasn't the intent of me being on here, but
No,
um,
I am looking forward to it myself. So I think, it's an awesome thing.
yeah, you leapfrogged Commercial Empire and just joined the mastermind. You're like, I'm in. Wait until you sit in on that. That really simplifies a lot of things. Um, Commercial Empire came out of me being overridden by Facebook messages of being asked to consult, and so it turned into a coaching platform. That's 2 days. It used to be in person. Now it's virtual because of COVID. But it actually dropped the price significantly because we were able to do that. So, we do a 2-day event a few times a year, and really just taking commercial real estate investing and apartment building investing and boiling it down to a few simple concepts, really 5 principles. I'll give an overlying foundation of all of them initially, and then we talk about how to find deals and how to source off-market direct-to-seller deals and how to do it where you don't have to work through brokers and you don't have to have a massive balance sheet in order to go get any respect in the community, and how you can go and start sourcing deals during the event. Like we have there's an action step where you actually get deals coming into your inbox during the event. It's powerful. Then we talk about how to underwrite the deals. Now, what do you do with them? Well, here's a simple way of how to run the numbers, plus, minus, figure out what the net operating income is, and then kind of divide it out and value the property. Then we talk about how to structure it with financing and private money. So how do I go and raise private money? I've raised over 50 million, probably, I don't know, probably up to $80 million now. I have 50 million that's actually in my projects right now. So I probably raised $80 million of mom and pop money. I've never used institutional equity whatsoever. So it's always been, this person's got 100 grand or 50 grand or 300 grand or $1 million even. And just working with people with chunks of money like that. And I've raised a lot of it. I've raised 4 million in 48 hours before. That was my first big constraint that really helped me jump through those self-limiting beliefs on how to raise money. How to structure it with financing, what to look for in the financing terms and all that different kind of stuff, and who's going to give you these loans and all that jazz. Then we talk about how to fix and fill the property. So once you close on the property, that's really when the work begins. A lot of people think I just need to take it down. No, the work begins after you take it down. You got to go through there and renovate the property and put good tenants in place, put good management in place, stabilize the buildings that you purchased. And then the last one is exit strategies. How are you going to exit this property? Are you planning to flip it? Maybe it's a wholesale deal. You can wholesale apartments just like you can wholesale houses. I've done it before. I've also flipped apartment buildings where I had the intent of buying it, renovating it, and selling it in 6 to 12 months for multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit. And then my favorite exit strategy is buy and hold, right? Like the Burr method: buy, renovate, rent, refinance is really the strategy that I teach heavily at my Commercial Empire. So our goal is to then refinance, pay back all the investors, and then the investors still have equity in perpetuity in the deal, and then we can own this thing, and all of our chips are off the table. It's only house money, like the agency loans, Fannie or Freddie loans in place. And then we hold on to this thing for 10, 20, 30 years. And again, slam down principal on the payments. As the tenants pay rent every month, we pay our mortgage every month. And every year that the tenants renew their leases and rents get bumped up, guess what? If all of a sudden you create this spread of equity where the value increases, the principal's paid down, and you have all this equity in 10, 20, 30 years. And that is how legacy wealth is built. And that's what this event's all about. So give those basic principles and basic action steps that you can take immediately to go out and start doing deals right away.
Yeah. Legacy wealth was what I just kept thinking about as you were talking over and over and over again. It's like, that's where it really happens, is in the buy and hold strategy for sure. And the longer, the better. And yeah, we're in under contract on 249 doors in Central Ohio right now. And on 2 different deals, and we're modeling 5-year holds, but if it actually works better to do a 10-year hold because we've got big prepay penalties on these things on some loans we're assuming right now on these guys. But yeah, the buy and hold, that's where it is. That's where the wealth gets built. That's where legacy generational wealth gets built. And that's where the rich get richer, so to speak. So, dude, Tim, like, you know, my Ohio-based brother is killing it and just tearing it up. I'm filled with joy to be a part of your group and your tribe, and super grateful for you hanging out and sharing all your wisdom. You are a very wise person, and yeah, I'd say even beyond your years. Like I said, I've got a few years on you, and you're very impressive to me. You're a great teacher and a great leader in particular. And I know a lot of people are very grateful and have a lot of things in their life they probably wouldn't if it weren't for you. So
I appreciate it, man. That means a lot.
Congratulations, man. You're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah.
So.
I think, you know, I recognize that I have an ability, you know, to do some cool things and make an impact. And, you know, it goes back to Spider-Man, right? Like when you have the ability to make an impact, you have the responsibility to make an impact. And when you have great powers, you have great responsibility that come with it. And so, you know, I think all of us need to be doing it. I think like my goal is not just to influence, you know, the people in our mastermind and you know, help you guys build wealth, but it's like really to develop leaders. I want you guys to go out and do this. And you're doing it, Tate. You're doing it through your podcast and through social media, and you're making an impact on other people's lives. And like, that's really like the culminating pinnacle for me is like, how many leaders can I help create that are then going out and then creating more leaders and making a bigger impact, more so than touching more lives than I could ever touch personally, you know? And so if we can all do it, I mean, dude, you see what's going on out there right now in society. Like, we need more leaders. We need more people thinking for themselves, being thought leaders, being reasonable, being logical, and across the board, both sides of the aisle. Like, we just need more of it. So, no, man, I appreciate you and appreciate all the value that you're bringing and all the value that you'll continue to bring. And thank you for having me here, buddy.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much, Tim. And to our listeners, I know this has been just a jam-packed episode full of things to go back and listen to and revisit. And one thing I didn't even talk about is how you cut your teeth in New York City and you know, learning the industry from that angle. Like I preach that a lot, like figure out a way to work in the industry either for free or as an internship or whatever you do. Like there's just so many good takeaways here. So yeah, super grateful, Tim. Really appreciate you. And I know my listeners do too. Listeners, if you like this episode, please leave a rating and review. I really appreciate that. Helps things out quite a bit. And we will see you next week with another episode of The Apartment Guys. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.